The stars twinkled like 1,000 scattered diamonds against the dark, endless expanse of space. Karaziel stood in the observation bay, her sharp alien eyes scanning the distant Earth below. She had never seen a planet like this one. Its blue oceans and green continents painted a picture of life, but one that her species had always considered primitive and unstable. Yet, her assignment was clear: gather data on humanity. As a member of the Xerxu race, an advanced species with technology that far surpassed anything Earth could ever dream of, Karaziel had a duty. Her people had observed humanity from afar for years. The Xerxu had no interest in Earth's politics or culture, but they were fascinated by the humans' biology. They wanted to know if there was any use to be made of their kind. This assignment had been given to Karaziel, one of the top scientists among her people, because she was seen as cold, logical, and unfeeling, a perfect candidate for this delicate task. She adjusted the settings on her console, her long, slender fingers moving gracefully across the holographic controls. She wasn't here to make friends or interact with the humans. She was here to study them, to observe them from a distance. The Xerxu had seen no reason to engage directly with humans. Their primitive, emotional nature seemed beneath them. Still, there was something oddly captivating about their unpredictability. It was that very quality that intrigued Karaziel. Her task was simple: spend time on Earth, collect samples, study their biology, and, if necessary, conduct controlled experiments. And with that, the decision had been made for her. She would find a human male, a subject for her experiments. Her orders were clear, and she would follow them as always. It didn't take long for Karaziel to meet her chosen human subject. His name was Caleb Blackwood, a biologist from Earth's newly formed space exploration agency. He was sent to the planet's surface for a routine diplomatic mission, something to test the waters of intergalactic relations. Karaziel observed him from the moment he stepped off the shuttle, his body language betraying both confidence and curiosity. There was no fear in his eyes, no hesitation. He was bold, a trait that she had never expected from a human. Caleb was introduced to her as part of the formal meeting between Earth scientists and the Xerxu delegation. He seemed unfazed by the alien presence, and his curiosity matched Karaziel's own. The two exchanged pleasantries, though Karaziel kept her distance. She wasn't interested in small talk. She had a mission to fulfill. It didn't take long for Karaziel to find an excuse to pull Caleb aside. She made a quick, subtle invitation to meet her privately, something about an experiment. Caleb, of course, agreed without hesitation. He wasn't sure what was about to happen, but there was something about Karaziel that intrigued him. Her alien beauty was undeniable, but it was her intelligence that he admired. She carried herself with an air of confidence, as though she was always in control of everything around her. As they walked to a more secluded area of the Xerxu station, Karaziel explained her project. "I have been assigned to study your species. I need to gather data on your biology, particularly your reproductive capabilities." Her voice was calm, matter-of-fact, as though the topic was one of the least important aspects of her life. Caleb blinked in surprise, trying to process her words. He had no idea that this was part of the diplomatic mission. "Wait, you want to study our reproductive system?" he asked, trying to keep the awkwardness out of his voice. "Yes," Karaziel confirmed. "My people have studied many species throughout the galaxy, but your biology is different from anything we have encountered before. We wish to understand it better." Caleb's eyes widened, but his curiosity got the best of him. "So what do you need me to do?" She turned to him, her expression as unreadable as ever. "I will need to conduct an experiment. It is a simple procedure, but it will provide valuable data." There was a slight pause, as if she was weighing something in her mind. "The procedure involves biological interaction. I will need you to assist me." Caleb's heart raced, though he kept his face neutral. He wasn't entirely sure what she meant, but the idea of being part of an experiment with an alien was too enticing to ignore. He nodded slowly, unsure whether this was a good idea or not, but his curiosity won out. The next few hours passed quickly. Karaziel explained the details of the procedure in a clinical, almost detached manner. There was no room for emotion in her words. The experiment, as she called it, was simple. Caleb would participate in a biological interaction with her, one that would help her understand how human genetics responded to alien influence. It sounded simple, but Caleb couldn't shake the feeling that there was more at play here than he understood. Once we begin, the process will be quick. There will be no pain, but the results will be crucial for the study, Carazale reassured him. Caleb agreed, though he felt a bit of tension in the air. This wasn't what he expected when he signed up for a diplomatic mission. He had assumed he would be meeting alien scientists, maybe exchanging knowledge or simply learning from their superior technology. But this felt different. Carazale was something else entirely. They entered a sterile white room, and Carazale motioned for Caleb to sit on the examination table. "It will be over quickly," she said again, her voice soft but firm. She began setting up various devices around the room, her hands moving swiftly. Caleb watched her with a mix of fascination and unease. He had never encountered an alien race this direct. As the procedure began, Caleb felt an odd sense of calm wash over him. Carazale's hands were delicate and sure, guiding him through the process with precision. He couldn't deny that there was something strangely comforting about her presence, even if it was clinical. And then in one brief, unexpected moment, it was done. Carazale stepped back, her expression unreadable. "The experiment is complete," she said, as if nothing unusual had just occurred. But inside, something was stirring. She could feel it. There was an energy in the air, a hum of something that had never happened before. Caleb, still processing what had just happened, watched her closely. "Is that it?" he asked, still feeling the strange after-effects of the procedure. "Yes," Carazale replied, her gaze fixed on him. But then she frowned. A flicker of confusion crossed her face as she glanced at the data monitor nearby. The readings were not what she had expected. There was something different, something new. She turned back to Caleb, her voice cool but with a trace of disbelief. "This was not supposed to happen. Your biology, it is reacting in a way that should be impossible." Caleb, confused and a little anxious, took a step closer. "What do you mean?" "What's going on?" Carazale didn't answer immediately. Her mind raced. This wasn't part of the plan. There was something in his genetic structure, something human, that had changed everything. Carazale stared at the data monitor with growing disbelief. Her usually perfect control over scientific experiments had been shattered in the blink of an eye. The results were clear. This was not a standard outcome. She had expected the biological interaction with Caleb to be nothing more than a simple, sterile procedure. Her species had tried similar experiments with countless other life forms, and never had there been anything even remotely like this. But this was something else entirely. The screens in front of her flickered as the results continued to update in real time. She could hardly believe her eyes. The human male's genetic material was not only compatible with hers, but it seemed to be evolving. Carazale's mind raced. She had always considered herself a master of her field, the most advanced scientist of her race, but now she was faced with something entirely unexpected, a result that defied all logic. Caleb, still on the examination table, looked at her with confusion. He had no idea what was happening, but he could tell by the tension in Carazale's stance that something had gone wrong. His heart raced. "What's happening? Is everything all right?" Carazale barely heard him. Her mind was spinning, processing the data as it poured onto the screen. The biological interaction was supposed to be a failure, a simple test with no lasting effect. But this was far from ordinary. She had expected her species to be far superior, with complete control over biology. But the human male had somehow broken through all of that. How could this be? She glanced back at Caleb, who was now sitting up, his expression a mix of curiosity and concern. He was not as unsettled as Carazale, but he could sense the change in her. "Something was different, Caleb." Carazale's voice was colder than usual, her tone sharp. "You need to understand. The experiment has produced an unexpected result." "What do you mean?" Caleb asked, his voice low. "What happened?" Carazale hesitated for a moment, unsure how to explain what she was seeing. Her species had a highly advanced understanding of biology, yet there was no way to prepare for something like this. Humans were primitive, unpredictable, yet their bodies were responding in a way that seemed far beyond anything she had anticipated. The screen in front of her displayed the data in bold, unyielding lines, indicators she had never seen before. strange markers that had no precedent in Xerxu biology. The experiment had taken far more than she had bargained for. The genetic material from the human male wasn't just compatible as she initially thought. It was integrating, evolving, adapting to the alien physiology in ways that seemed impossible. And that was when it hit her. The most unexpected part of all, she felt it, a deep, unsettling pressure in her chest. Carazal took a slow, steady breath, trying to calm herself. The procedure was supposed to be a controlled experiment, but the results, they indicate something I didn't expect. She paused. It was too absurd, too strange, but the data was undeniable. You're pregnant, Caleb. The words hung in the air, as heavy and surreal as the moment itself. Caleb blinked in shock, his mind scrambling to comprehend what he had just heard. Pregnant? He echoed, his voice a mix of confusion and disbelief. What do you mean, pregnant? Carazal turned away from him, pacing quickly in the small room. Her eyes were fixed on the data as though she could somehow make sense of it by simply staring at it. But the more she studied it, the more baffling it became. A human male and a Xerxu female should not interact in such a way. And yet here she was, holding the undeniable proof in front of her. Her mind raced. The Xerxu had complete control over their biology. Their genetic codes were carefully calibrated over millennia of evolution. They chose their mates based on intellectual compatibility, not biological impulse. They reproduced only when it served the greater good, and even then, the process was meticulously planned. But here, in this strange twist of fate, she had been made vulnerable. It was supposed to be impossible, yet somehow it had happened. She was carrying a child, a human child. Her thoughts were interrupted by Caleb's voice. Wait, so, you mean to tell me that I'm the father? He asked, a nervous laugh escaping his lips, though it was clear he was still struggling to process the situation. How can this be? Carazal stopped pacing and turned back to face him, her expression unreadable. I don't know. Her voice was tight with frustration. I've never seen anything like this before. Our species has never been capable of such an outcome. Caleb sat back, trying to make sense of it all. So what does this mean? For you? For me? For this experiment? The air in the room felt heavier now, as if the weight of the unknown had begun to settle over them both. Carazal's mind was still whirling. How could this happen? What did it mean for the Xerxu? What did it mean for the humans? This was not just a scientific anomaly, it was a threat. If her people found out, they would demand immediate termination of the pregnancy. They would see it as a breach of their sacred biological laws. The elders would not tolerate such an irregularity, especially one that threatened their position in the galaxy. She turned to Caleb, her voice cold. This cannot get out. Do you understand? If anyone finds out, they will destroy both you and the child. I cannot allow that to happen. Caleb nodded quickly, his earlier confusion now replaced by a sense of urgency. I get it. But what can we do? You can't just hide it forever. The truth will come out eventually. Carazal's expression darkened. I will handle it, but for now we must keep this quiet. I need to understand more about this, about how this happened. I cannot let my people know. Not yet. There was a long silence between them. Caleb, trying to come to terms with the strange situation, glanced at her again. You seem worried. What does this mean for you, Carazal? For your species? Her lips pressed into a thin line as she turned back to the data, her thoughts racing. It means everything changes, she said quietly. This could be the end of everything we've known. The Xerxu are a species of control, of precision. We do not accept failure. And yet here I am, carrying a human child, a being that should have no place in our world. Caleb swallowed hard, realizing the enormity of what he was hearing. But this could be something new. Something better, maybe. Carazal shook her head, her tone sharp. No. It could be the end of us all. She took another deep breath, fighting to keep her composure. This situation was unlike anything she had ever encountered. She was in uncharted territory, and there was no roadmap for what to do next. Listen, Caleb said, his voice low but firm. I don't know about your species, but humans, we don't give up. If this is something we have to face together, then we'll face it together. I'm not leaving you alone in this. For the first time since their encounter began, Carazal's icy demeanor softened, just a fraction. She didn't know if she could trust Caleb, but in this moment she didn't feel quite as alone. They stood in silence, each processing the gravity of what was happening. Karaziel knew one thing for certain. Nothing would be the same again. Karaziel stood in the center of the sterile room, her mind buzzing with the impossible situation that had unfolded. The data on the screen before her continued to flash, updating at a rapid pace, yet no matter how many times she reviewed it, the results remained the same. She was pregnant. The human male, Caleb, had somehow triggered a biological response in her that no Xerxu scientist would have ever predicted. This was beyond an experiment, it was a crisis. She had never allowed herself to be vulnerable. And yet here she was, carrying a child that she could not explain. Worse, the implications of this discovery would ripple far beyond her personal life. The Xerxu people, who valued control above all else, would never tolerate something so chaotic, so unpredictable. Her race had been ruled by logic and order for eons, and the idea of an unplanned, uncontrolled pregnancy was as much an insult to their way of life as it was a threat to their very survival. She could feel the pressure building in her chest again, a weight that had nothing to do with the physical changes occurring inside her body. Her heart raced as she thought about the leaders of her people, the elders. The Xerxu Council had no tolerance for mistakes, and this situation was a mistake of the highest order. The door behind her opened with a soft hiss, and Caleb stepped into the room. His face was filled with concern, but there was also an undercurrent of determination. He'd been unusually calm ever since the initial shock of learning that he was somehow involved in creating life with an alien species. But now, seeing Karaziel so distraught, he couldn't help but worry about what this meant for both of them. "You're still here," Caleb said gently, his voice calm but edged with worry. "You've been staring at those screens for hours. Are you okay?" Karaziel didn't answer immediately. She was still processing everything. The situation was spiraling out of control, and she needed to regain her composure before it was too late. She turned slowly to face Caleb, meeting his eyes for the first time since the experiment had concluded. His gaze was steady, almost empathetic. "I'm not sure," she admitted. "I don't know what's happening to me. To us." Caleb took a step forward, trying to bridge the growing distance between them. "We'll figure this out together." Karaziel's eyes flashed, a sharpness returning to her expression. "You don't understand," she snapped. "This is bigger than just the two of us. The Xerxu do not tolerate such disruptions. My people will see this as a failure, a breach of everything we stand for. This could destroy both our lives." Caleb opened his mouth to speak, but Karaziel raised her hand, silencing him. "I have to protect you, Caleb. I have to protect the child." She had always been calm under pressure, but now the weight of her responsibilities, both personal and political, pressed down on her with unbearable force. The pregnancy wasn't just a biological anomaly, it was a political one as well. Her people would demand that she abort the child, claiming that it was a mistake, a violation of their strict biological codes. But Karaziel couldn't bring herself to do that. Despite her fear and confusion, something deep inside her was changing. The bond between her and Caleb was undeniable, and now there was a new life to protect. "I know you're scared," Caleb said quietly, stepping closer, "but we can't let fear control us. We need to figure out what this means, not just for your people, but for ours too." "I'm not going to run away from this." Karaziel's gaze softened slightly. She had never met anyone like Caleb. His courage, his unwavering belief in his own ability to face the unknown, was unlike anything she had ever witnessed. He was so human in his defiance of fear, and yet that was exactly why she feared for him. "Caleb, you don't understand the consequences," Karaziel said, her voice tinged with frustration. "This is not just about us. It's about the survival of my species. If the Xerxu find out about this pregnancy, they will see it as a weakness. They will hunt you down and they will destroy the child. I cannot let that happen. You do not know my people. They will not show mercy." Caleb stood still for a moment, absorbing her words. The idea that something so simple, so beautiful could trigger a war or a massacre was unimaginable to him. He had grown up in a world where differences were often embraced and celebrated, even when they led to conflict. But this was something entirely different. "I can't promise you it will be easy," Caleb said, his voice steady but full of conviction. "But I can promise you this, I'm not running away. I'll stand by you. I'll help you protect this child." Karaziel looked at him, searching his face for any sign of doubt. But there was none. Caleb's determination was clear. He meant every word. I don't know what will happen when the Xerxu discover this, she whispered, her voice shaking for the first time. But I cannot let them take this from me. Not this child. Not you. The hours that followed were a blur. Carazale found herself making plans, strategies, trying to anticipate the inevitable conflict that would come. Her people would come for her. She had no doubt about that. She had to make sure she was ready for them. Caleb, ever the optimist, tried to reassure her, but he knew this wasn't just about them anymore. This was about something much bigger. As much as he wanted to believe that things could be worked out peacefully, the reality was clear. The Xerxu were not the kind of people who would tolerate a mistake like this. They would see the pregnancy as a betrayal, and they would stop at nothing to erase it. We'll have to keep moving, Carazale said, her mind already working ahead. We need to leave here, Caleb. My people will come for us soon. The sooner we leave, the better. But where will we go? Caleb asked. The galaxy is a big place, and I don't know if we can outrun your people forever. We'll go to Earth, Carazale said, her voice firm. It's the only place where we might find a chance to survive. The Xerxu will never follow us there. They've always seen Earth as insignificant. Caleb hesitated, the weight of her words sinking in. Are you sure? Going to Earth might make things worse, not better. They might think we're trying to hide something. Carazale met his gaze. It's the only option we have. As they made preparations, Carazale couldn't shake the feeling that things were already spiraling out of control. They were running, but there was nowhere to hide from the truth. And as the hours passed, she realized just how much of her life had been built on certainty, on control, on logic. But now her world was crumbling. She didn't know what would happen next or if she would even survive the coming conflict. But she knew one thing for sure. She would not let them take her child. The next day, Caleb and Carazale stood at the docking bay, their bags packed, ready to leave the Xerxu station. Carazale's resolve was hardening with each passing moment. She was no longer just a scientist, she was a mother, and she would protect her child at all costs. We have to move fast, she said to Caleb, her voice low but firm. Once we leave here, we may not get another chance. Caleb nodded, looking out at the stars. He was ready. There was no turning back now. Together, they boarded the ship and set course for Earth. The unknown stretched out before them, a galaxy full of danger and uncertainty. But for the first time since they had met, Carazale felt something she had never felt before: hope.